Ethan Hale stood at the podium, his presence commanding the attention of every attendee at the tech conference. The auditorium was packed, filled with industry leaders, eager entrepreneurs, and tech enthusiasts. As he spoke about his company's latest innovations, the crowd hung on his every word. Ethan's charisma was undeniable, his confident smile and well-tailored suit projecting an image of success and power. Ladies and gentlemen, the future is not just about technology, it's about how we use that technology to shape our world, Ethan declared, his voice resonating through the speakers. The audience nodded in agreement, many furiously taking notes or recording his speech on their devices. As Ethan continued his presentation, showcasing groundbreaking advancements in artificial intelligence and sustainable energy solutions, the applause grew louder. He was in his element, effortlessly fielding questions from the audience and demonstrating a deep understanding of complex technological concepts. Yet, as the conference drew to a close and Ethan made his way backstage, the smile faded from his face. He loosened his tie and let out a heavy sigh. Despite the adoration and success, an emptiness gnawed at him. He had everything money could buy: a penthouse apartment, luxury cars, a private jet. But something was missing. The cheers of the crowd still echoed in his ears, but they felt hollow. Meanwhile, in a different part of the city, Maya Sullivan sat at her desk, surrounded by computer screens and complex diagrams. The office around her buzzed with activity, predominantly male voices discussing coding issues and hardware specifications. Maya's fingers flew across her keyboard, her eyes focused intently on the lines of code before her. A coworker approached, his tone condescending. "Hey Maya, could you get me a coffee? I've got a big presentation coming up." Maya looked up, her expression a mix of frustration and determination. "I'm in the middle of debugging this system, Tom. Maybe you should focus on your presentation instead of your caffeine intake." The man walked away, muttering under his breath. Maya took a deep breath, steadying herself. It wasn't the first time she'd faced such casual sexism, and she knew it wouldn't be the last. As one of the few women, and even fewer people of color, in her department, she constantly felt the need to prove herself. Despite the challenges, Maya remained hopeful. Her work on an innovative security algorithm was gaining attention from higher-ups, and she knew her skills spoke for themselves. She turned back to her screen, determined to finish the project that could potentially change her career trajectory. Later that week, Ethan and Maya found themselves working together on a collaborative project between their companies. The initial meeting was tense, with Ethan's reputation preceding him and Maya's guard up due to past experiences. As they delved into the project details, however, the atmosphere began to shift. Ethan was impressed by Maya's technical knowledge and innovative ideas, while Maya found herself drawn to Ethan's vision and strategic thinking. Their discussions became more animated, both challenging and building upon each other's ideas. The rest of the team watched in amazement as the two brilliant minds worked in sync, creating solutions that neither could have developed alone. As the day wore on, the professional admiration began to evolve into something more. Stolen glances turned into lingering looks, casual touches, a hand on a shoulder, fingers brushing while reaching for the same document, sent electricity through both of them. The project meeting extended into the evening, and soon they found themselves alone in the conference room, surrounded by whiteboards covered in diagrams and equations. The tension between them was palpable, a mix of intellectual stimulation and undeniable attraction. "I've never met anyone who could keep up with me like this," Ethan admitted, his voice low and intense. Maya met his gaze, her heart racing. "I could say the same about you." In that moment, all thoughts of professional boundaries disappeared. They came together in a passionate embrace, years of loneliness and the thrill of finding an equal culminating in an unexpected night of intimacy. As dawn broke, reality began to set in. Ethan and Maya lay side by side, the weight of their actions hanging over them. Neither spoke, both lost in thoughts of what this night could mean for their futures, unaware of the life-changing consequences that were about to unfold. Maya sat on the edge of her bathtub, staring at the pregnancy test in her hands. The 2 pink lines were unmistakable. She was pregnant. Her mind raced, replaying the events of that passionate night with Ethan just a few weeks ago. They had been careful, but apparently not careful enough. She took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing heart. Maya knew she had to tell Ethan. Despite their brief encounter, she believed he deserved to know. She also hoped, perhaps naively, that he might support her through this unexpected situation. The next day, Maya requested a private meeting with Ethan at his office. As she entered the sleek, modern space, she noticed how different it felt from their last encounter. The warmth and connection they had shared seemed to have evaporated, replaced by a cold, professional atmosphere. Ethan looked up from his desk, his expression guarded. "Maya, what can I do for you?" Maya steeled herself, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. "Ethan, I need to tell you something important. I'm pregnant." The words hung in the air between them. Ethan's face went through a range of emotions: shock, disbelief, and finally, a cold detachment that made Maya's heart sink. "Are you certain it's mine?" Ethan asked, his voice devoid of emotion. Maya felt as if she'd been slapped. "Of course it's yours. I haven't been with anyone else." Ethan stood up, turning to look out the floor-to-ceiling windows of his office. "This can't happen, Maya. Do you understand what this could do to my reputation? To the company?" "I'm not asking for anything, Ethan. I just thought you should know," Maya replied, her voice trembling slightly. Ethan turned back to face her, his expression now hard and businesslike. "I think it's best if you leave the company, Maya. I'll ensure you receive a generous severance package, but we can't continue working together under these circumstances." Maya felt as if the floor had dropped out from under her. "You're firing me? Because I'm pregnant?" "I'm protecting the company from a potential scandal," Ethan replied coldly. "You'll be well compensated. I suggest you take the offer and move on." Tears stinging her eyes, Maya turned and left the office without another word. She gathered her belongings under the curious stares of her co-workers, her mind numb with shock and disappointment. As she stepped out of the building for the last time, the reality of her situation hit her. She was pregnant, jobless, and alone. The future she had carefully planned seemed to crumble around her. With nowhere else to go, Maya returned to her mother's house. Sarah Sullivan opened the door to find her daughter in tears, suitcase in hand. Without a word, she pulled Maya into a tight embrace. "Oh, baby girl, what happened?" Sarah asked, leading Maya to the living room. Through sobs, Maya explained everything: the night with Ethan, the pregnancy, and her sudden unemployment. Sarah listened without judgment, her arm around her daughter's shoulders. "We'll figure this out together," Sarah assured her. "You and this baby are not alone." Over the next few months, Maya focused on her pregnancy and healing from the betrayal she felt. She applied for jobs, but found that many companies were hesitant to hire a visibly pregnant woman. The tech industry, already challenging for women of color, seemed even more unwelcoming now. Meanwhile, Ethan tried to bury himself in work, pushing the memory of Maya and their unborn child to the back of his mind. He threw himself into new projects, working long hours and attending every industry event he could. But in the quiet moments, usually late at night in his empty penthouse, the guilt would creep in. He'd find himself wondering about Maya, about the child. Was it a boy or a girl? Would it have his eyes or Maya's brilliant mind? He tried to justify his actions to himself. He wasn't ready for a child. It would have been a scandal. The company's stock might have taken a hit. But no matter how he rationalized it, he couldn't shake the feeling that he had made a terrible mistake. Ethan's personal life began to suffer. He became known for his ruthless business tactics and cold demeanor. Relationships, both personal and professional, became transactional. He was more successful than ever, but the emptiness he had felt before meeting Maya only grew. As Maya's due date approached, she found strength in unexpected places. Her mother's unwavering support, a support group for single mothers, and her own determination all helped her prepare for the challenges ahead. She may have lost her job and the man she thought she could trust, but she was determined to create a good life for her child. The day Lucas was born, Maya felt a love she had never experienced before. Looking into her son's eyes, she made a silent promise to always protect him and to ensure he grew up knowing his worth, regardless of the circumstances of his birth. Ethan, unaware of Lucas's birth, continued his spiral of work and isolation, the weight of his choices hanging heavily upon him, even as he tried to convince himself he had done the right thing. Maya's life took an unexpected turn in the months following Lucas's birth. While scrolling through job listings one sleepless night, she stumbled upon an organization called Women in Tech Empowerment, YT. The group's mission to support and promote diversity in the technology sector resonated deeply with Maya. She reached out to White and soon found herself attending meetings, first as a participant and then as a volunteer. The women she met there, many of whom had faced similar challenges in their careers, became a source of strength and inspiration. One evening, after a particularly engaging discussion about the lack of representation in tech leadership, Maya felt compelled to share her story. She spoke about her experience as a talented engineer who was pushed out of her job due to pregnancy. The room fell silent as she recounted her struggles and the determination that kept her going. Karen, the founder of White, approached Maya after the meeting. "Your story is powerful, Maya. Have you considered becoming an advocate for change in the industry?" Maya hesitated. "I'm not sure I'm qualified. I'm just trying to get back on my feet." Karen smiled encouragingly. "That's exactly why you're qualified. You've lived it. You understand the challenges firsthand." Over the next few months, Maya threw herself into advocacy work. She began speaking at events, sharing her experiences, and pushing for more inclusive policies in tech companies. Her engineering background, combined with her personal story, made her a compelling and respected voice in the community. As Maya's profile grew, she found doors opening that had previously been closed. Job offers started coming in, this time from companies that valued diversity and were eager to change their corporate cultures. While Maya's career was taking a new, unexpected direction, Lucas was growing into a curious and bright toddler. By the time he was 4, it became clear that he had inherited his parents' intelligence and affinity for technology. One afternoon, while Maya was working on her laptop, Lucas climbed onto the couch next to her. "Mama, what are you doing?" he asked, his eyes wide with curiosity. Maya smiled, pulling him closer. "I'm writing a program, sweetie. It's like giving instructions to the computer to make it do things." Lucas's face lit up. "Can I try?" Maya hesitated for a moment, then opened a simple coding program she used for teaching. She guided Lucas's small hands over the keyboard, helping him type out basic commands. To her amazement, Lucas quickly grasped the concepts, eagerly asking to learn more. Over the next year, Maya nurtured Lucas's growing interest in programming. She introduced him to child-friendly coding apps and watched in awe as he absorbed information at an astonishing rate. By his 5th birthday, Lucas was creating simple games and animations on his own. One evening, as Maya was tucking Lucas into bed, he asked, "Mama, can I make a big game? One that other kids can play?" Maya kissed his forehead. "Of course you can, baby. We'll start working on it tomorrow." For the next few months, Maya and Lucas spent their evenings and weekends working on Lucas's game. It was a simple but addictive puzzle game with colorful characters. Maya guided Lucas through the basics of game design and helped him refine his code. But the core ideas and much of the implementation came from Lucas himself. When the game was finally complete, Maya helped Lucas upload it to a popular game-sharing platform for kids. They didn't expect much. It was more about the experience of creating something together. However, within a week, Lucas's game started gaining traction. Other children were playing it, leaving comments, and sharing it with their friends. The number of downloads grew exponentially. Maya watched in amazement as Lucas's creation took off. She filmed him excitedly explaining his game, his brown eyes shining with pride, and posted the video on her social media accounts. The video went viral almost immediately. People were captivated by the image of this young, brilliant child of color explaining complex coding concepts with ease. Tech blogs picked up the story, marveling at Lucas's precociousness and Maya's supportive parenting. As the buzz around Lucas's game grew, Maya felt a mix of pride and apprehension. She was thrilled for her son's success, but worried about the attention it might bring. She had worked hard to keep Lucas shielded from the tech world's darker side, including the painful history with his father. Little did Maya know that the viral video had caught the attention of none other than Ethan Hale. Sitting in his office, Ethan found himself watching the video of Lucas explaining his game. Something about the boy's mannerisms, his quick mind, and his infectious enthusiasm stirred something in Ethan. He clicked on Maya's profile, and his heart nearly stopped. There she was, the woman he had tried so hard to forget. And next to her, a brilliant young boy who looked to be about 5 years old. Ethan leaned back in his chair, a whirlwind of emotions washing over him. The son he had rejected, the woman he had cast aside, they were now at the center of a feel-good tech story that was capturing hearts across the internet. For the first time in years, Ethan felt the full weight of his past decisions. As he stared at the images of Maya and Lucas, he realized that his life was about to change in ways he couldn't yet imagine. The annual Tech Future Expo was in full swing, with companies from around the world showcasing their latest innovations. The convention center buzzed with excitement as attendees moved from booth to booth, marveling at cutting-edge gadgets and groundbreaking software. Maya stood at a small booth representing white, engaging passers-by in discussions about diversity in tech. Lucas sat nearby, engrossed in his tablet, working on a new version of his game. "Mama, look," Lucas exclaimed suddenly, tugging at Maya's sleeve. "I fixed the bug in level 3. Maya smiled, about to respond, when a loud crash echoed through the hall. A prototype hoverbot from a nearby exhibit had malfunctioned, careening out of control and smashing into displays. Panic spread through the crowd as people scrambled to get out of the way. Maya instinctively pulled Lucas close, shielding him from the chaos. Amidst the commotion, Lucas broke free from Maya's grasp. "I can stop it, Mama," he shouted, running towards his tablet. Before Maya could react, Lucas had grabbed his device and was furiously typing. Seconds later, the rogue hoverbot froze in midair, then gently lowered to the ground. The hall fell silent. All eyes turned to the small boy standing triumphantly next to the now dormant machine. "I hacked into its control system and rewrote the stabilization algorithm," Lucas explained matter-of-factly to the stunned onlookers. The crowd erupted in applause. Tech journalists swarmed around Lucas and Maya, cameras flashing and questions flying. In the span of a few minutes, Lucas had become the sensation of the expo. As the excitement died down, Maya noticed a group of serious-looking men in suits approaching. They introduced themselves as investors, interested in Lucas's remarkable talents. "We'd like to discuss potential opportunities for your son," one of them said, handing Maya a business card. "His skills could revolutionize the industry." Maya felt a mix of pride and unease. Lucas's abilities were extraordinary, but she worried about the pressure and attention that came with such recognition. Later that evening, As news of the incident spread across social media and tech blogs, Maya's phone buzzed incessantly with notifications and messages. Lucas's story had gone viral, with many hailing him as a child prodigy. Among those watching the unfolding story with keen interest was Ethan Hale. Seeing Lucas in action confirmed what he had suspected. The boy was truly exceptional. Ethan felt a complex mix of emotions: pride in Lucas's achievements, regret for his past actions, and a growing determination to be part of his son's life. 2 weeks after the expo, Maya found herself preparing for a gala event hosted by the National Association for Technology Advancement. She had been invited as a speaker to discuss both her advocacy work and Lucas's recent fame. As Maya stood before the mirror, adjusting her dress, she felt a twinge of anxiety. This would be her first major public appearance since the expo incident. She knew there would be questions about Lucas, about his father, about their future plans. "You look beautiful, Mama," Lucas said, peeking into the room. He was dressed in a miniature suit, looking every bit the young tech mogul. Maya smiled, pushing her worries aside. "Thank you, sweetheart. Are you ready for your big night?" Lucas nodded enthusiastically. "I can't wait to meet all the cool tech people." At the gala, Maya and Lucas were immediately the center of attention. Tech executives, investors, and media personalities all clamored to meet the brilliant young coder and his equally impressive mother. As Maya navigated the crowd, graciously fielding questions and deflecting overly probing inquiries about Lucas's parentage, she failed to notice a familiar figure entering the hall. Ethan Hale strode in, commanding attention as always. He was scheduled to give a keynote speech on the future of AI, but his mind was elsewhere. His eyes scanned the room, searching for Maya and Lucas. When he finally spotted them, Ethan felt his breath catch. Maya looked stunning, her poise and confidence evident as she chatted with a group of industry leaders. And there, by her side, was Lucas, his son, looking so much like a miniature version of himself that it made his heart ache. As if sensing his gaze, Maya looked up. Her eyes met Ethan's across the crowded room, and for a moment, time seemed to stand still. Recognition, shock, and a flurry of unspoken emotions passed between them. Lucas, oblivious to the tension, tugged at his mother's hand. "Mama, isn't that the man from the tech magazines? The AI guy?" Maya snapped back to reality, her voice tight as she responded. "Yes, Lucas, that's Ethan Hale." Ethan began to make his way towards them, his heart pounding. He had imagined this moment countless times over the past few weeks, but now that it was here, he found himself at a loss for words. As Ethan approached, Maya instinctively pulled Lucas closer. The boy looked up at Ethan with wide-eyed curiosity, unaware of the complex history between the adults. "Hello, Maya," Ethan said softly, his eyes moving between her and Lucas. "It's been a long time." Maya's response was cool and composed. "Yes, it has, Mr. Hale. I didn't expect to see you here." Ethan crouched down to Lucas's eye level, unable to hide the emotion in his voice. "And you must be Lucas. I've heard so much about you. Your game is incredible." Lucas beamed at the praise. "Thank you, sir. Do you really think so?" As Lucas eagerly began to explain his latest coding project to an attentive Ethan, Maya watched the interaction with a mix of emotions. The man who had once cast them aside was now hanging on every word their son said. The gala continued around them, but for Maya, Ethan, and Lucas, the world had narrowed to this moment, a long-awaited reunion that would set in motion events that would change all of their lives forever. Sarah Sullivan, Maya's mother, watched the news coverage of the gala with growing concern. The sight of Ethan Hale interacting with her grandson stirred up old memories and ignited a protective instinct. As a longtime community activist, Sarah had always been skeptical of big tech companies and their impact on society. Ethan Hale's company in particular had been on her radar for years. "Something's not right about that man," Sarah muttered to herself, reaching for her laptop. She began digging into Ethan's background, his company's practices, and any controversies associated with him. As Sarah delved deeper, she uncovered a pattern of questionable business practices. There were reports of data privacy breaches, allegations of worker exploitation in overseas factories, and rumors of tax evasion through complex offshore arrangements. While none of these allegations had led to formal charges, the sheer volume of smoke suggested there might indeed be fire. Meanwhile, Lucas was still buzzing from the excitement of the gala. He couldn't stop talking about Ethan Hale and how cool it was to meet such a famous tech innovator. "Mom, did you know Mr. Hale's company is working on advanced AI that can predict human behavior?" Lucas asked over breakfast, his eyes shining with admiration. "He said they're going to change the world." Maya felt a knot form in her stomach. She had hoped to shield Lucas from Ethan's influence, but it was clear that the brief interaction at the gala had left a strong impression on her son. "Lucas, honey," Maya began carefully, "Mr. Hale is certainly accomplished, but it's important to remember that there's more to a person than their public image." Lucas looked confused. "What do you mean, Mom? Everyone says he's a genius." Maya sighed, realizing she couldn't put off this conversation any longer. "Sometimes, Lucas, people who seem very successful might not always make the best choices. It's complicated." "Is this about my dad?" Lucas asked suddenly, his perceptiveness catching Maya off guard. "Is that why you get weird when people ask about him?" Maya felt her heart race. She had always known this day would come, but she had hoped for more time to prepare. "Lucas, there's a lot we need to talk about. But yes, it does have to do with your father." Before Maya could continue, her phone buzzed with a message from her mother. "Maya, we need to talk. I found some concerning information about Ethan Hale. Come over as soon as you can." Maya looked at Lucas, who was watching her intently. "How about we go visit Grandma? She's been wanting to see you." At Sarah's house, while Lucas played in the backyard, Maya and her mother pored over the information Sarah had gathered. "Maya, this man is not who he pretends to be," Sarah said, her voice filled with concern. "His company has been involved in some seriously unethical practices, and there are rumors of even worse things that haven't come to light yet." Maya felt a mixture of vindication and dread. Part of her had always wanted to believe that Ethan wasn't as cold and callous as he had seemed when he pushed her away, but this information painted a picture of a man who prioritized profit and power over ethics and human decency. "What do I do, Mom?" Maya asked, feeling overwhelmed. Lucas is already so impressed by him, and Ethan, he seemed genuinely interested in getting to know Lucas at the gala. Sarah took her daughter's hand. "You need to protect Lucas. Ethan Hale is a powerful man, and if he decides he wants to be part of Lucas's life, he could make things very difficult for you." As they talked, neither of them noticed Lucas standing in the doorway, having come in for a glass of water. He caught snippets of their conversation, enough to understand that there was some secret about his father and that it somehow involved Ethan Hale. Later that night, as Maya tucked Lucas into bed, she could sense something was bothering him. "Is everything okay, sweetheart?" she asked, smoothing his hair. Lucas was quiet for a moment before speaking. "Mom, is Ethan Hale my dad?" Maya felt as if the wind had been knocked out of her. She hadn't prepared for this direct question. "Lucas, it's complicated. There's a lot you don't understand yet." "But is he?" Lucas persisted, his eyes searching his mother's face for the truth. Maya took a deep breath. She had always promised herself she would never lie to her son. "Yes, Lucas. Ethan Hale is your biological father." Lucas's eyes widened. A mix of emotions played across his face: surprise, confusion, and a hint of excitement. "Why didn't you tell me? Why doesn't he live with us? Doesn't he want to be my dad?" Maya felt tears welling up in her eyes. "Oh, Lucas, It's not that simple. Your father, he made some choices a long time ago. Choices that hurt us both. I wanted to protect you from that pain." As Maya tried to explain the situation in terms a 5-year-old could understand, she realized that the truth was far more complex than she had ever imagined. The brilliant little boy, looking up at her with confusion and hurt in his eyes, deserved better than the mess the adults in his life had created. Meanwhile, across the city, Ethan sat in his home office, staring at a photo of Lucas he had found online. The boy's resemblance to him was undeniable. Ethan felt a surge of emotions he had long suppressed: regret, longing, and a desperate desire to make things right. But as he reached for his phone to call Maya, he hesitated. The weight of his past decisions and the potential consequences of his actions gave him pause. Ethan realized that entering Lucas's life now would open a Pandora's box of complications, both personal and professional. Yet, looking at his son's face, he knew he couldn't stay away any longer. The stage was set for a confrontation that would change all of their lives forever. Ethan Hale sat in his sleek office, staring at his computer screen. The email from his legal team confirmed his worst fears. Sarah Sullivan's investigation into his company's practices was gaining traction. Several reputable journalists had picked up on the story and were asking for comments on allegations of data misuse and labor violations. He ran his hands through his hair, feeling the weight of his past decisions bearing down on him. The empire he had built, the reputation he had cultivated, it was all at risk of crumbling. And now, with Lucas in the picture, the stakes felt even higher. Ethan's phone buzzed. It was a message from Maya. "We need to talk. It's about Lucas." His heart raced. Was this about the gala? Had Lucas figured out who he was? Ethan replied, suggesting they meet at a quiet cafe the next day. As Ethan prepared to leave his office, his assistant rushed in. "Mr. Hale, there's a situation. Someone's leaked internal documents to the press. They're claiming we've been manipulating user data for profit." Ethan felt the blood drain from his face. He had always justified these practices as necessary for innovation, for staying ahead in a cutthroat industry. But now, faced with the prospect of public scrutiny, he realized how it would look to outsiders, how it would look to Lucas. The next day, Ethan arrived at the cafe early, his mind racing with potential explanations and justifications. When Maya walked in, her face set in a stern expression, he knew this wouldn't be an easy conversation. "Maya," Ethan began as she sat down, "before you say anything, I want you to know that I'm truly sorry for how I treated you 5 years ago. I was wrong, and I've regretted it every day since." Maya's expression didn't soften. "Save it, Ethan. I'm not here for apologies. I'm here because our son is asking questions about his father, and I need to know what you plan to do about it." Ethan felt a mix of joy and fear at the words, "our son." He leaned forward, his voice low and urgent. "I want to be part of his life, Maya. I know I don't deserve it, but please, give me a chance to make things right." Maya's eyes flashed with anger. "Make things right? Do you have any idea what you put us through? And now, with all these allegations about your company coming out, how can I trust you around Lucas?" Ethan's face fell. "You know about that?" "My mother's been doing some digging," Maya replied coldly. "Data manipulation, privacy breaches, exploiting workers. Is this the legacy you want to leave for your son?" Ethan felt defensive instincts kick in. "It's not that simple, Maya. In this industry, sometimes you have to make tough choices to stay ahead. Everything I've done has been to push technology forward, to create innovations that can change the world." Maya scoffed. "At what cost, Ethan? The trust of your users? The well-being of your workers? Your own integrity?" As they argued, neither noticed the small figure approaching their table until it was too late. "Mom? Mr. Hale?" Lucas's voice cut through their heated discussion like a knife. Maya and Ethan turned, shocked to see Lucas standing there, his eyes wide with confusion and hurt. Sarah stood a few feet behind him, an apologetic look on her face. "I'm sorry, Maya," Sarah said. "He overheard me talking about the meeting and insisted on coming. I couldn't stop him." Lucas looked between Maya and Ethan, his young mind trying to process the scene before him. "Is it true?" he asked, his voice small. "Is Mr. Hale really my dad?" The cafe seemed to fall silent, the weight of the moment hanging heavy in the air. Maya reached out to Lucas, but he stepped back, his eyes fixed on Ethan. Ethan felt a lump form in his throat. He knelt down to Lucas's eye level, acutely aware of Maya and Sarah watching his every move. "Yes, Lucas," he said softly. "I am your father, and I'm so sorry I haven't been there for you." Lucas's face scrunched up, a mix of emotions playing across his features. "Why?" he asked simply, the hurt in his voice palpable. Ethan struggled to find the right words. How do you explain fear, ambition, and selfishness to a child? "I made a mistake, Lucas, a big one. I was scared and thought only about myself. But seeing you now, knowing how amazing you are, I realize what I've missed. And I want to try to make it right, if you'll let me." Maya stepped in, putting a protective arm around Lucas. "It's not that simple, Ethan. You can't just walk in after 5 years and expect everything to be okay." Lucas looked up at his mother, then back at Ethan. "Did you not want me?" he asked, his voice trembling. The question hit Ethan like a physical blow. "No, Lucas, that's not it at all. I didn't know how to be a father. I thought I wasn't ready. But I was wrong. So wrong." As Lucas processed this information, his young face showed a maturity beyond his years. He looked at Ethan with a mixture of curiosity and caution. "Do you really make computers that can think like people?" he asked, changing the subject abruptly in the way only children can. Ethan smiled sadly, recognizing the deflection, but appreciating the olive branch. "I try to, yes. Would you like to hear about it sometime?" Lucas nodded slowly, then turned to Maya. "Can we, Mom? Can I talk to my dad sometimes?" Maya felt torn. She looked at Ethan, seeing the regret and hope in his eyes, then at Lucas, whose face showed a cautious excitement. She knew that keeping them apart would only hurt Lucas in the long run. "We'll see, Lucas," she said finally. "We have a lot to talk about first, all of us." As they left the cafe, the future uncertain but filled with possibility, Ethan realized that he had a choice to make. He could continue down the path that had brought him success, but at a great moral cost, or he could use this second chance to become the man and the father he should have been all along. The road ahead would be difficult, filled with hard conversations and harder decisions. But looking at Lucas, Ethan knew that it was a journey he had to take, not just for his son, but for himself as well. The headline blazed across every major tech news site. Hale Tech embroiled in massive data scandal. The story broke early on a Tuesday morning, sending shockwaves through the industry and causing Hale Tech's stock to plummet. Ethan sat in his office, watching the financial graphs on his screen trend sharply downward. His phone buzzed incessantly with calls from board members, investors, and reporters. He ignored them all, his mind racing to find a way out of this mess. The allegations were damning. Internal documents leaked to the press revealed that Hale Tech had been secretly harvesting user data, far beyond what was disclosed in their privacy policy. The company had been using this data to develop predictive algorithms that could manipulate user behavior for profit. As Ethan grappled with the fallout, across town, Maya was dealing with her own crisis. Her phone had been ringing non-stop since the news broke, with reporters eager to get a comment from the mother of Ethan Hale's recently discovered son. "No comment," Maya repeated for what felt like the 100th time that morning. She hung up and turned to Sarah, who was helping to keep Lucas occupied in the other room. "This is a nightmare, Mom. How do I protect Lucas from all of this?" Sarah squeezed her daughter's hand. "We'll figure it out together, sweetheart. That boy is strong, just like his mother." Meanwhile, the National Association for Technology Advancement was scrambling to distance itself from the scandal. They hastily organized a conference on ethics in technology, and Maya found herself invited as a keynote speaker. Initially, Maya was hesitant to accept, but after a long discussion with Sarah, she realized this was an opportunity to make her voice heard on a larger platform. The day of the conference arrived. The auditorium was packed with industry leaders, journalists, and activists. Maya took a deep breath as she was introduced, then stepped up to the podium. "Good afternoon," she began, her voice steady despite her nerves. "We're here today to talk about ethics in technology, but I want to start by talking about responsibility." As Maya spoke, her words resonated through the hall. She talked about the importance of diversity in tech, the need for transparency in data practices, and the responsibility that comes with creating technologies that shape people's lives. "We cannot separate the products we create from their impact on real people," Maya continued. "When we prioritize profit over privacy, when we exploit user trust for financial gain, we betray the very people we claim to serve." In the audience, Ethan sat quietly, his head bowed. Each of Maya's words felt like a direct indictment of his actions. He had come to the conference hoping to do damage control, but now he found himself questioning everything he had built. As Maya's speech drew to a close, she paused, taking a moment to gather herself for what she knew would be the most difficult part. "I stand before you not just as an advocate for ethical technology, but as a mother," she said, her voice softening. "A mother whose child has recently discovered that his father is at the center of this scandal." A murmur ran through the audience. Ethan's head snapped up, his eyes locking with Maya's across the crowded room. "I've seen firsthand the human cost of unethical practices in tech," Maya continued. "I've experienced the pain of being discarded when I became inconvenient to someone's ambitions. And now, I watch my son grapple with the reality that his father's legacy is tainted by scandal." Maya's words hung in the air, the silence in the auditorium palpable. "But I'm not here to cast blame. I'm here to call for change. Real, meaningful change in how we approach technology and its role in our lives." As Maya stepped down from the podium to thunderous applause, Ethan felt as if the ground had shifted beneath his feet. He had come to the conference ready to defend his actions, to justify his choices. But Maya's words had stripped away his defenses, forcing him to confront the true impact of his decisions. Later that evening, as the conference wound down, Ethan approached Maya. His usual confidence was gone, replaced by a look of genuine remorse. "Maya," he said quietly, I need your help. I want to make things right, but I don't know how." Maya studied him for a moment, seeing not the powerful tech mogul, but a man grappling with the consequences of his actions. "It won't be easy, Ethan. You've got a lot to answer for." Ethan nodded, a look of determination settling on his face. "I know, but I'm ready to do whatever it takes. For the company, for the users we've betrayed, and for Lucas." As they talked, neither of them noticed Lucas watching from across the room. The young boy's face was a mixture of confusion and resolve. He may not have understood all the grown-up talk about scandals and ethics, but he knew one thing. His parents were finally talking, and maybe, just maybe, things were about to change. The tech world buzzed with speculation about what would happen next. Would Hale Tech survive the scandal? Would Ethan Hale step down? And what role would Maya Sullivan, the unexpected voice of conscience in the industry, play in shaping the future of technology? As the sun set on a day that had shaken the tech world to its core, the stage was set for a new chapter in the lives of Ethan, Maya, and Lucas. One that would challenge them all to redefine their understanding of family, responsibility, and redemption. In the weeks following the conference, Lucas found himself at the center of a whirlwind of emotions and changes. The media frenzy had died down somewhat, but the repercussions of the scandal continued to ripple through their lives. One evening, as Maya was helping Lucas with his homework, he suddenly put down his pencil and looked up at her. "Mom, can I ask you something?" Maya nodded, sensing the seriousness in her son's tone. "Of course, sweetheart. What's on your mind?" Lucas hesitated for a moment, then asked, "Can I spend some time with Dad? I want to know more about him." Maya felt a mix of emotions at Lucas's request. Part of her wanted to protect him from Ethan's influence, but she also knew that Lucas had a right to know his father. "Are you sure that's what you want, Lucas?" Lucas nodded, his young face set with determination. "I have questions, and I think he might need someone to talk to." Maya couldn't help but smile at her son's empathy, even in this complicated situation. "Okay, Lucas, I'll arrange something. But remember, if at any point you feel uncomfortable or want to leave, just let me know." The next Saturday, Maya drove Lucas to a nearby park where they had agreed to meet Ethan. As they pulled into the parking lot, Maya spotted Ethan sitting on a bench, looking uncharacteristically nervous. "Are you ready?" Maya asked Lucas, who nodded silently. As they approached, Ethan stood up, a tentative smile on his face. "Hello, Lucas. Thank you for agreeing to meet me." Lucas looked up at Ethan, his expression a mixture of curiosity and caution. "Hi, Dad," he said, the words sounding foreign on his tongue. Maya watched as Ethan's face lit up at being called Dad. "I'll be right over there if you need me," she said, pointing to a nearby picnic table. As Maya walked away, she heard Lucas ask, "Can you tell me about your work? The AI stuff?" For the next hour, Maya watched from a distance as Ethan and Lucas talked. She saw Ethan gesturing animatedly, clearly explaining some complex concept, while Lucas listened intently, occasionally interjecting with questions. Despite her lingering reservations, she couldn't help but feel a twinge of warmth at seeing them bond over their shared passion for technology. However, the peaceful scene was interrupted when Lucas suddenly stood up, his body language tense. Maya was on her feet immediately, rushing over to them. "Lucas, what's wrong?" she asked, putting a protective arm around her son. Lucas looked up at her, his eyes filled with a mix of confusion and hurt. "He said he's stepping down from his company, that he might go to jail. Why didn't you tell me?" Maya shot a sharp look at Ethan, who had the decency to look ashamed. "Lucas, there's a lot going on right now that's complicated and hard to explain," she began. But Lucas cut her off. "I'm not a baby, Mom. I understand more than you think. Dad did bad things, didn't he? That's why everyone's so angry at him." Ethan knelt down to Lucas's level. "Yes, Lucas, I made some very big mistakes. I'm trying to make things right now, but it's not easy." Lucas was quiet for a moment, processing this information. Then he asked, "Will you still be able to see me if you go to jail?" The question hung in the air, heavy with implications. Ethan looked at Maya, silently pleading for help. Maya sighed, realizing that they couldn't shield Lucas from the reality of the situation any longer. "Lucas," Maya said gently, "your father is in a lot of trouble right now. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. But no matter what, we'll figure out a way for you to stay in touch if that's what you want." Lucas nodded slowly, then turned to Ethan. I think I need some time to think about everything. Is that okay?" Ethan's face showed a mix of pain and understanding. "Of course, Lucas. Take all the time you need. I'll be here when you're ready." As they walked back to the car, Lucas was uncharacteristically quiet. Maya could almost see the gears turning in his young mind, trying to make sense of the complex adult world he had been thrust into. Once they were home, Lucas retreated to his room, saying he wanted to work on his coding project. Maya let him go, knowing he needed space to process everything. Later that night, as Maya was about to go to bed, she heard a soft knock on her door. She opened it to find Lucas standing there, his eyes red-rimmed but determined. "Mom," he said, his voice small but steady. "I think I want to keep seeing Dad, even if he did bad things. Is that okay?" Maya felt her heart swell with love and pride for her brave, compassionate son. She pulled him into a tight hug. "Of course it's okay, Lucas. We'll figure this out together, I promise." As Lucas snuggled into her embrace, Maya realized that their journey was far from over. There would be more difficult conversations, more challenges to face. But looking at her son, she felt a glimmer of hope. Perhaps through Lucas's eyes, both she and Ethan could find a path to redemption and healing. Over the next few months, Maya found herself in an unexpected position. As Ethan worked to make amends for his company's actions, she became an unofficial advisor, using her expertise in ethical technology to guide Hailtech's reformation. One afternoon, Maya sat in a sleek conference room at Hailtech headquarters, surrounded by executives and lawyers. Ethan stood at the head of the table, looking more haggard than she had ever seen him. "We've implemented the new data protection protocols," Ethan announced, "and we're in the process of notifying all affected users. Maya, what do you think?" Maya studied the documents in front of her. "It's a start," she said cautiously. "But we need to go further. Complete transparency is the only way to regain user trust." As the meeting continued, Maya couldn't help but notice the way Ethan deferred to her opinion, how he seemed genuinely committed to making things right. It was a far cry from the ruthless businessman she had known years ago. After the meeting, Ethan approached her. "Thank you for your help, Maya. I don't know if I could do this without you." Maya felt a mix of emotions at his words. Part of her was still angry at him for his past actions, but she couldn't deny that he was trying to change. "I'm not doing this for you, Ethan. I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do." Ethan nodded, a look of understanding passing between them. As Maya gathered her things to leave, he hesitated, then asked, "How's Lucas doing?" Maya paused. "He's processing. It's a lot for a kid to handle, but he's resilient." Meanwhile, across town, Lucas was immersed in a very different world. He had joined a local coding club for kids, and for the first time, he was surrounded by peers who shared his passion for technology. "Check it out, guys," Lucas exclaimed, showing his friends the app he had been working on. "It's a game that teaches kids about data privacy." His friends gathered around, impressed by the colorful interface and clever design. "This is awesome, Lucas," one of them said. "How did you come up with this idea?" Lucas hesitated for a moment before answering. "Well, my dad's company got in trouble for not protecting people's data. I thought maybe if kids understood it better, they could help their parents be safer online." The room fell silent for a moment. Everyone knew about the Hailtech scandal. It had been all over the news. But hearing Lucas talk about it so personally was different. "That's really cool of you, Lucas," another friend said finally. "Using what happened to help other people." Lucas beamed, feeling for the first time that maybe, just maybe, some good could come out of the complicated situation with his father. Later that evening, as Maya picked Lucas up from the coding club, she noticed a new spring in his step. "Had a good time?" she asked. Lucas nodded enthusiastically. "Mom, I showed everyone my privacy game. They really liked it. Do you think Dad would want to see it too?" Maya felt a lump form in her throat. Despite everything, Lucas still yearned for his father's approval. "I'm sure he would love to see it, sweetheart. We can ask him next time you meet." As they drove home, Lucas chattered excitedly about his plans to expand the game. Maya listened, her heart swelling with pride at her son's determination to make something positive out of their difficult situation. The next day, Maya found herself back at Hale Tech, this time for a public forum on the company's new ethical guidelines. As she took her place at the panel, she spotted a familiar face in the audience. Sarah, her mother, sat in the front row, a mix of pride and concern on her face. The forum was intense, with tough questions from journalists and angry users. Maya watched as Ethan fielded each query, his responses honest and contrite. It was clear he had taken her advice about transparency to heart. Towards the end of the session, a young reporter stood up. "Mr. Hale, Ms. Sullivan, there are rumors that your past relationship and your son have influenced Hale Tech's new direction. How do you respond to accusations of a conflict of interest?" The room fell silent. Maya felt all eyes turn to her and Ethan. She took a deep breath, preparing to answer, when Ethan spoke up. "Our personal history is complicated," Ethan said, his voice steady. "But Ms. Sullivan's involvement in Hale Tech's reformation is based solely on her expertise in ethical technology. If anything, our past has made her more determined to hold us accountable. We're not here to rehash personal drama. We're here to make things right for our users and for the industry as a whole." Maya felt a surge of respect for Ethan's response. As the forum concluded, she caught his eye across the room. There was still a long way to go, but for the first time, Maya felt that maybe, just maybe, they were on the right path. As she left the building, Sarah fell into step beside her. "You're doing good work, Maya," her mother said softly. "But don't forget to take care of yourself too. And Lucas." Maya nodded, feeling the weight of her responsibilities. As they walked to the car, she thought about Lucas, about Ethan, about the complex web of relationships and responsibilities they were all navigating. The road ahead was still uncertain, but Maya felt a glimmer of hope. With every step forward, they were writing a new chapter in their shared story, one of redemption, growth, and the possibility of forgiveness. The annual Young Innovators competition was in full swing, with kids from all over the city showcasing their tech projects. The convention center buzzed with excitement as judges moved from booth to booth, evaluating the creative and often surprising inventions of the young participants. Lucas stood nervously by his display, fiddling with his tablet. His privacy education game, now expanded and polished, was running on several devices for visitors to try. Maya watched from a distance, giving her son space to present his project independently. "You've got this, sweetie," she had told him earlier that morning. "Just remember why you created this game. That passion will shine through." As Lucas explained his project to the judges, Maya noticed a familiar figure entering the hall. Ethan, looking somewhat out of place in his casual clothes rather than his usual suit, scanned the room until his eyes landed on Lucas's booth. He hesitated, then made his way over. Maya tensed, unsure how Lucas would react to his father's unexpected appearance. She started to move closer but stopped herself. This was Lucas's moment, and she needed to let him handle it. Lucas had just finished his presentation when he spotted Ethan. His eyes widened in surprise. "Dad, you came?" Ethan nodded, a tentative smile on his face. "I hope that's okay. I wanted to see your project." For a moment, Lucas seemed unsure. Then his face lit up with excitement. "Want to try it? I've added new levels since I showed you last time." As Ethan sat down to play the game, a small crowd gathered, whispering among themselves. It wasn't every day you saw a disgraced tech mogul playing a children's game at a school competition. Maya watched as Lucas excitedly explained each feature to Ethan, who listened with rapt attention. Despite her lingering reservations, she couldn't help but feel touched by the genuine interest Ethan showed in their son's work. Suddenly, a commotion near the entrance caught everyone's attention. A group of reporters had entered, cameras flashing as they spotted Ethan and Lucas together. Maya's protective instincts kicked in. She rushed over, positioning herself between the reporters and her family. "This is a children's event," she said firmly. "Please respect their privacy." But the reporters were persistent. "Mr. Hale, is this your son? Are you using him to rehabilitate your image?" one shouted. Before Ethan or Maya could respond, Lucas stepped forward. His voice was shaky but determined as he addressed the reporters. "My name is Lucas Sullivan. This is my project. And yes, Ethan Hale is my dad. But that's not what's important right now." The room fell silent, all eyes on the young boy standing his ground against the intimidating press. Lucas continued, gaining confidence. "What's important is that kids like me understand how to protect their information online. That's why I made this game, because I saw how much damage can happen when big companies don't respect people's privacy." He glanced at Ethan, who nodded encouragingly, a mix of pride and remorse on his face. "My dad made mistakes," Lucas said, his voice growing stronger. "But he's trying to fix them, and I'm trying to help in my own way. So instead of asking about family drama, why don't you try my game and see what you think?" The room erupted in applause. Other kids and parents, moved by Lucas's speech, started sharing their own stories of online privacy concerns. The reporters, caught off guard by the turn of events, found themselves drawn into conversations about digital safety and ethics. In the midst of the commotion, Maya felt a hand on her shoulder. She turned to see Ethan, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Did you hear that?" he said softly. "He called me Dad, and he defended me." Maya nodded, her own emotions threatening to overwhelm her. "He's an amazing kid, Ethan. He sees the best in people, even when they've made terrible mistakes." As the excitement died down, the judges returned to Lucas's booth. They were clearly impressed, not just by the game itself, but by the maturity and passion Lucas had displayed. "Young man," one judge said, "I think you've created something truly special here. Have you considered how this could be expanded to reach more children?" Lucas's eyes widened. I haven't really thought about it. I just wanted to help my friends understand." The judge smiled. "Well, I think a lot more than just your friends could benefit from this. We'd like to talk to you and your parents about potentially developing this further." As Lucas excitedly shared the news with Maya and Ethan, the three of them found themselves huddled together, united in a moment of shared pride and possibility. Maya looked at Ethan, then at Lucas. The path that had led them here had been fraught with pain, mistakes, and difficult truths. But in this moment, seeing the joy on her son's face and the genuine remorse and love in Ethan's eyes, she felt a glimmer of hope for their future. The road ahead would still be challenging. There were still wounds to heal, trust to rebuild, and a world of scrutiny to navigate. But as Lucas stood between them, holding both their hands and beaming with pride, Maya realized that perhaps this unconventional family had found its way to a new beginning. As they left the competition hall, Lucas clutching his first-place trophy, Maya felt a sense of peace she hadn't experienced in years. Whatever came next, they would face it together, as a family,